Welcome back to the Tigers Minor League Report Prospect Series we've been doing here. I'm Chris Brown. That's Rogelio Castillo there. We got Connor down there. And joining us today, it's our pleasure to have one of the Detroit Tigers' best prospects. He's one of their top catching prospects. He's Josh Crouch. Josh, how you doing today?
Hey, doing wonderful, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
And typically, we like to get a little better feeling for our guests. So if you have an early baseball memory that you feel like sharing, we always like to hear those.
Um, I would say an earliest baseball memory for me is we always had um, like a lot of kids growing up used to play little league. Well, we had what's called Dixie Youth, like Ozone, similar but different leagues, obviously. And growing up, we had like a homegrown team out of the big old town of Sebring, Florida, south of Lakeland, and we just we played together for years and years and years, and we had several. We actually went to the World Series four separate times, won it twice, came in second and third. So like, just growing up, coming from a small town, being able to like, we had some pretty good talent come out of our town as well as far as like producing some Division I talent and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, just from a very early age, just being able to get in front of some bigger crowds and be able to compete. I mean, it was pretty valuable. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say that's the best early memory.
there's an awful lot of talent down in Florida for baseball. So yeah,
It's
I was going to ask you, yeah, if you kept running in, or crossing paths with some of those kids as you got into high school and college and even in pro ball.
yeah, it's actually funny you say that because I've several times it happened once in the minors and then several times in college when I went to UCF. I had kids that would be like, because I would be catching and I'll talk to some of the hitters as they come up and they're like, "Hey, did you used to pitch for that Team Sebring way back when we were in Ozone?" And I was like, "Yeah, that was us." They're like, "Bro, you guys killed us," and I was like, "Yeah, we were pretty good." So, but yeah,
Yeah, so that'll kind of take us into your background a little bit. So tell us a little bit more about your amateur career, whether it's high school ball down in Florida.
yeah.
You also committed to FIU, but then you ended up going to SCF, but then you also transferred to UCF. So kind of run us through that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, out of high school, really wasn't recruited anywhere big. Always was because of the town I played in. Really didn't play for a big travel team until my last year. I played for the Scorpions out of Orlando, and so really wasn't a real big guy about going to all the showcases and the tournaments and stuff like that. And just ended up, I was a third baseman then, and I ended up getting an opportunity from FIU, and I had two other friends from Sebring as well, a pitcher and an outfielder that also had committed to FIU. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna hang out with my guys that those two kids were also on that World Series team that I grew up playing with. So I was like, all right, well, I'd love to go to college with these guys. And then, interestingly enough, the senior year they have like pro day workouts. Senior year of high school, and I was at a Dodgers workout as a third baseman, and Scott Hennessy, I'd never forget it. He came up to me and he said, "Hey, have you ever thought about catching?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. Like, no way have I ever thought about catching a baseball behind home plate. Like, I do not want to be hit." And just because, like, one of my really close friends on that team as well, like, I just saw him grind out like travel ball weekends, catch four games in a day, and I'm like, I do not want that life. Like, just being exhausted, always down in the squat, and he was like, "Well, we got some gear here for you, and we want you to do some pop times and some drills and stuff like that." And ended up going out and doing it and doing really well. And then that basically kick-started me to decommitting from FIU because I knew FIU had some upperclassmen catchers and really had no idea how to catch. So I didn't think I would want to just jump right into D1 baseball, not knowing how to do anything. And ended up going over to Manatee for a workout. Got recommended to go there by one of my close friends. It's like, "Hey, you should contact Coach Hill, see if he has any openings for you." I wanted to go there as a third baseman, but they didn't have any room for me. And then follow back later, he found out that I was going to try and catch, and he's like, "Okay, well, we might have some room for you now." and ended up going there, doing well, committed. Just my first experience as a catcher at Manatee was horrendous, to say the least. Like 20 pass balls freshman year, just ridiculous. Had no idea what I was doing because Manatee obviously gets a lot of bigger time JUCO transfers over the break and stuff like that. So I was catching guys throwing mid 90s and I just had no idea what to do with it. So basically I took that summer. The pitching coach at Manatee was Donnie Robinson, pitched in the big leagues forever. And he's real old school of hard knocks, like yelling at you in the middle of the game when you don't catch a ball correctly and stuff like that. So, I mean, he wore me out over that freshman year, and that basically motivated me during the summer to get better and learn how to actually catch and go to a catching coach. And I was introduced to the Florida Collegiate League in Orlando, and my coach Josh Montero there introduced me to a catching guy that worked there in the off seasons when he wasn't in pro ball, and his name is Eddie Rodriguez. Last year, he was the big league catching coach for the Marlins, and now I believe he is the minor league field coordinator for the Mets. So he was out of the Orlando area, worked with him 2-3 times a week. He gave me a good baseline for receiving and stuff like that, and just how to be a catcher. And I'd always had decent hands from playing the infield, but never really knew how to relate it to catching, and blocking was the hardest part. Obviously, like trying to commit to, I'm going to block this ball. It doesn't matter how bad it hurts. So that was what I learned over that summer. And then going back into my sophomore year, got a lot better. Obviously, I had to still improve on some things. And then, that led me into committing to UCF, and got a lot better there over COVID years when I really took the big jump. We got was splitting time my first year, 2020 at UCF. And then COVID hit and I went back. I was going to go to the Cape and ended up going back to the Florida Collegiate League that summer again, and worked out with him a little bit more and just really honed in my game and got bigger and got stronger and knew my body some more and knew what I could handle. And then ended up having a really successful year, kind of putting everything together with the bat at UCF my COVID junior year. So, and that's basically, kind of the entryway to where I'm at now. So
it's interesting, by the way, guys. Fun fact: Scott Hennessy, who scouted him, took over for Ryan Garco at AA Tulsa.
Tulsa.
So it's I thought that was really interesting how that all plays together, and I'm sure they exchanged notes when it came to perhaps even draft day. And talks through that process. And were you at home waiting, or just how'd that whole day go for you?
No, I mean, it was draft day in general. Like I said, obviously I age wasn't on my side with COVID year being my junior year and then having to come back again for that next year. But I mean, during that 2020 summer, I met a lot of my better friends now. Dylan Cruz, who's a big prospect in the upcoming draft this year for LSU. Actually met him that summer through Josh Montero, who was the coach of that summer team. And ended up living at his house and got to know his family real well. They've done a lot for me, and got to know him pretty well, and ended up having my little draft party there at his house with just some family and some close friends and some coaches and stuff like that were in the area. But I mean, as far as the draft goes, I mean, I really had no expectation of where to get drafted because I was getting ready to be 22 in December of that July draft. So like I said, age wasn't on my side, but I believed I had the experiences I need to get me to where I was at. Like I knew I needed to learn how to catch, and the term that you need to be ready for pro ball is a real thing. Like getting into pro ball too early is definitely a thing. And I believe that everything happens for the right reason, and COVID happening and me getting that last good year of like, okay, this is what showing up to the baseball field at the same time every day, like building a routine, like being mentally strong. Like those are some of the things that I learned that year that were able to set me up for some success later down the road in pro ball. But the draft process was wrecking. Like I was getting calls in the morning, like, hey, you're going to go here. Then, oh, no, you're not going to go here. You're going to go in this round. You got a call from this guy, but they wanted this much money and we're not taking that. So I'm just like, call me when we get an actual offer that we're going to take. Like, that's because I was on the phone with my agent constantly. And I was going to go, got a call like in the 7th round, but it wasn't for the money we were looking for. So he's like, we're going to wait till day 3 to where the slot resets. And we're going to just see what happens. And then I got a call in the morning, and I was actually told I was going to be taken by another team. And then I heard my name on the TV, and I was like, or on the computer on MLB.com, and I was like, oh, wow, that's weird. And then RJ Burgess, the area scout for Central Florida, called me and is like, hey, you're a Detroit Tiger. And I was like, wow. So Detroit was up there in the top 3 teams that I had definitely, like, every guy has like a top 3 team that they would want to be with. And Detroit was like in my top 3 for sure. It's close to home, hour away from Sebring, spring training site where I'm from. So I was like, that would be super convenient. The parents could come watch a lot of games and stuff like that. So ended up working out.
That's yeah, that's why, man. Every draft story we hear is kind of, I guess, except for like the people who might go first overall, it always sounds like kids get like they're getting 4 different phone calls and somebody said, hey, we're going to take you. And then they don't take you and they never call you back. And it's like, what the hell happened?
Yes, absolutely.
It's interesting you mentioned spring training, because that was, I think it was spring training of this year was the first time I think I had seen you play. And it was, one of the games was on TV, and it must have been like the 7th or 8th inning. And I'm like, oh, Josh Crouch is in. This is interesting. I remember them drafting him. And it was against the Yankees, I think. And the pitcher in there, I don't think he was a great prospect or anything like that, but he threw what I would describe as kind of a 40 grade breaking ball. I don't know. It wasn't a great breaking ball, but you stayed back on it and drove it to right field for a double. And I just remember thinking, that's interesting. And I clipped it and I put it online, and I was like,
you even text me, when it happened too.
I was like, that. Yeah. Something about it impressed me. And then, then we didn't see you for about 2 months, I think, because they started you out in Lakeland. Were you? But you're only there for like a week. What was that about? Were you surprised you were sent to Lakeland again, or did they go, hey, wait, this is wrong? Off to West Michigan.
No, absolutely. And just a quick little snippet of that story, like. That is that moment of me getting that hit. Like, the hit was really cool, but the coolest part for me is I actually pinch hit for Miggy.
Yeah.
So I was like, he was getting ready to like pack up his stuff and go to the clubhouse, and he was like, hey, good luck, bro, and tapped me on the butt and left. And I got a hit on that first pitch, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Pinch hit for Miggy, got a knock in a big league game. So that was kind of that was a good memory. But I mean, starting out in Lakeland, that, like I said, I'm bought in on the term everything happens for a reason. So I think me being in Lakeland and me getting a kickstart on the season and going down there, getting my feet wet, getting good with the bat, just catching some velo again and extensions of spring training, like building some confidence, I would say, is what jump started me into getting to West Michigan. Andrew Graham down there, one of my favorite coaches, big help to me in just what being a catcher every day looks like. Obviously he has experiences of his own that he shared with me all the time, and I'm grateful for the things that he helped me with. And by the time I got up to West Michigan, I felt definitely prepared for that level, and rest is history, I guess. So.
Well, yeah, and so we got to a fair amount of games this year, and we were actually in Lansing, I think, when you hit your first home run of the season.
Yeah,
and I remember, we were paying attention, but I was like, whoa, look at that, that's pretty sweet. And so that's, I mean, so much of what you hear about catchers is the defense and controlling the game and working with the pitchers and stuff. But your bat stood out to me first. Yeah. I was like, this kid really works the count well. He's got a good idea of the strike zone. He doesn't expand much, and he hits for some interesting pop. So I don't know if there's a question in there, but I'm just kind of curious about, like, did you always feel like your bat was ahead of your defense?
Absolutely not. Like, that was the thing that when I was at UCF, the defense for them had always trumped the offense, because the start of the 2020 season, I was doing well defensively, but I didn't necessarily get off to a hot start that 2020 season, and never obviously had the time to like finish the season to see where I would have ended. But yeah, that 22 or that next summer put in a lot of work offensively, and just was like, I know where I need to be with catching. I know the drills are going to get me in the position that I'm in and that I've been in for the past year or so, but I really got to figure out. And for me, like I've been a no stride guy until this point. So it was more of developing an approach, like what pinches am I hunting and what counts, like how are they attacking me? What does he have? How am I going to use that to my advantage? And I feel like that is what helped me. I mean, as also the mind of a catcher, like I'm constantly thinking like, what would I throw in this count? And then think the opposite way. Like just trying to think of in the mind of a pitcher, like if I was catching, what would I throw myself? And then think of something different, knowing that I can always react to what I would call. So, but yeah, it was interesting and still got a lot of work to do with the bat, obviously. But I mean, up until that point, I was pretty satisfied with where I was at. So.
Yeah, and the catching position is just so unique compared to the other positions. Like there's so much more preparation involved. And obviously, nowadays it seems like the development curve is a little bit slower for catchers because they really want both sides of the ball to be strong when they get to pro ball. So kind of take us through what's like your daily preparation for catching and hitting for a day, like a game or a practice. Like what do you do each day to get you ready for the game?
So in the middle of the season, I'll just take you kind of through what I did in West Michigan, because when it got to the point when I was catching 4 or 5 games a week, I got in a pretty good routine of everything just day in and day out. I mean, I would show up to the field every day at noon, and the first thing I would do is get the lineup of the other team and go straight into the pitching coach's office. And for me, it was Dino last year, and we would talk about, hey, because the last night usually it's on a Monday, that's our off day. I would look like, here's the lineup, this is the report that they sent us. I would look at what they perceived as, this is the hitter's weakness, this is the hitter's strength, this is who's starting this day, this is his weakness, this is his strength. And then I'd get on True Media, which is basically our analytic outlet for videos and stuff like that, and find out like, hey, let me dive into some video here and see like, what does this guy's swing look like? How is it going to play against our arms? And I would talk about what I had seen with Dino, because he had also done the same work, and we would basically combine our ideas and come up with a scouting report. And then as the pitcher showed up, I would also go talk with him and see what he wanted to do. And, we would both kind of think on it. I would handwrite it down off what I saw off of video and what Dino says and stuff like that. They kind of created like a little template for me that I would fill out every day. And then just on the catching side, like I would have that meeting with the pitcher. And then as it got closer and closer to game time, the pitcher, if coordinators were in town, Brian Pena, the manager, Nick Bredesen, he was my catching. He helped me with a lot of catching. He was our development coach last year. We would all talk. Nick and I would previously, go over some catching analytics stuff. Like here, this is because last year we did some tinkering with some setups and some different stances for me, and as far as like what they thought might be more beneficial and stuff like that. And we talk about, okay, well, you got Brant Herter throwing a night, he throws a sinker. Like this is maybe the setup you want to use, stuff like that. And then we would all go into this meeting together in Pena's office. And between what I wrote down on my paper and what Dino wrote down and what the pitcher wrote down, we'd basically have a big 3-way conversation about, hey, this is what we need to do tonight. We're going to go out there and execute that plan. And then Pena and I would sit in the office for about 5 or 10 minutes afterwards. And he would tell me like, hey, this is what we got to do tonight. This is the mentality that we need to take. If this happens, this is what we're going to do. And basically just talk about everything before it happened. And so that way we weren't unprepared. And, just looking back, like from a catching perspective, the amount of experience that Pena had, just being able to look to a guy that's caught 10 plus years in the big leagues, like super respected, like having a guy like that to look towards in the dugout was by far the most beneficial part of last year for me. Like he kept me not only over prepared, but he also kept me accountable. Like don't think for a single second if I didn't slip up, he wasn't immediately on me, like in my face, telling me like this is what you need to do to like get it to like drive home in my head. Like this cannot happen again. Like this is gonna happen one time, and then we're gonna have this conversation once, and you're never gonna forget it, and we're gonna be like that's the way it's gonna go. And then on the other half, Nick, with his just daily accountability from a different angle. He's closer to my age. He speaks kind of more my lingo. Like, hey, this is what we got to do tonight. These are the drills that we're going to do pregame. This is what we're going to do on the machine. Like, this is the approach you got to have. Like, and he would be the guy that if Pena didn't have something, because he obviously has a lot of other stuff to talk about in the middle of the game. But if there was a problem in the middle of the game, Nick would be the first one to come up to talk to me in the dugouts. I'm sitting down there by the pitcher. Like, hey, let's try and make this adjustment this inning and see what happens. So, I mean, between those two guys, I mean, they set me up for a very, very good year, learning not only a lot about myself, but how to work with the pitching staff, how to manage game planning and game meetings. I mean, I really learned a whole lot this year that I wasn't expecting to. But now I just feel so prepared because I know exactly like these are the bullet points that I need to accomplish. These are the conversations I need to have with the coaching staff, with the pitchers, with my teammates. And, it really contributes to a winning atmosphere, which is what we've experienced, in high A and in double A where I was at for most of the year. So, I mean, yeah, I'd say that for me was the biggest part on the catching side. On the hitting side, I would similarly have the same thing, like constantly on True Media, looking at my swings, like analyzing, is this what the pitcher is trying to do to me now? Because on True Media, it has these heat maps and it shows basically like where I do my damage and stuff like that, and where pitchers are trying to attack me where I don't do my damage. And basically looking at that and then coming to the field and also having meetings with CJ Wansley, the hitting coach last year, like being able to build my plan similarly like I did catching to being a hitter as well helped me in just knowing. The biggest thing I could say I took from CJ is be the kind of hitter that the situation asks you to be. So never try and be like above the situation. If there's a guy on second base and no outs, get him to third. If there's a guy on third base, get him home. Like just playing simple baseball is what I learned most from CJ, on top of, just being a guy who was also on me about certain things like, hey, this is not going to play. Like if you're sticking to this approach, if we're thinking about hunting stuff up in the zone, like we're not swinging anything in the dirt. And that just being able to have constant accountability from every part of the coaching staff. And I know other players felt the exact same way because I'm close with a lot of people on that West Michigan team. I think that is what definitely helped contribute to our success that year. So.
Man, is it any wonder that catchers always become managers? I just like
no.
When I think about, I mean, you talk about Andrew Graham, you talk about Pena, both manager or both catchers that became managers. AJ Hinch,
Yep.
Just the amount of preparation that you were talking about there is mind-boggling. I don't think the average fan has any idea. Meanwhile, the left fielder is just out there thinking about like their Fortnite build.
Yeah.
But
hey, that's important because we need him to catch that fly ball in the ninth.
That's true.
That's true.
I did want to share most of what I have to talk to you about is just little anecdotes from during the season. And so another game we were out in West Michigan, and we were sitting with scouts from the Cardinals, I think, and there was an amateur scout from the Mariners who actually went to UCF. He was there at the same time you were, and he just couldn't stop talking about how much better he thought you were defensively within like a year and a half than when he saw you in college. And then you ripped off a 1-9 pop time or whatever, and everybody's like, all right, let's do this. But the one interesting thing, it was shortly thereafter, and you may correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you got hit by a pitch, and I thought it was on your hand or your wrist or something like that. And there was some not quite a Donnybrook after that, but some anger. I remember that. I don't know if the benches cleared or what happened there.
Did.
But
they did. No, it was. I mean, I'll tell you what. That was The reason I reacted that way was because I thought my season was over. Like I got hit with 97 in the hand. I didn't even see it coming. And well, obviously I saw it coming, but
Right.
I mean it tailed up and into me, and I was like in that check swing kind of mode, and it just drilled me right in the wrist. And I literally felt it hit my hand, and I was like, my wrist is broken. And I was down on the ground, and I kind of like peeled my batting glove off, and I looked at my hand, and it was like purple. And I was like, oh gosh. I was like, my season's over. So I stood up. And when I stood up, I kind of like looked over the catcher's shoulder, and the pitcher was staring at me. So the first thing out of my mind is like, why is he staring at me? He just hit me in the ninth and they're winning. So I kind of like blacked out for a minute and said what needed to be said and walked down the baseline. And then they obviously took me upstairs, and I got an x-ray and stuff the rest of the day there the next day. But like, wow, that was not fun. That was not fun because I felt the after effects of that pitch for probably a good month and a half after. So
Yeah, I was gonna ask you how that affected you. Did you find that affect your defense at all, your swing at all?
I mean, yes and no. Like obviously Sean McFarland and the training staff there, they did a great job, getting me ready for the game. And because when you get hit and stuff like that, it's just about being ready for the next game. So like, what can I do to get prepared for this game? And just being able to, work with Sean, and there was a little point there where it really didn't affect me as much hitting as it did throwing, because where I got hit on the wrist, kind of like when I turned my wrist over to throw, there was a huge bump there from obviously the inflammation, and it was kind of hard to throw, but obviously I could still throw, but it just wasn't as normal as what it usually is. So I mean, there was a little bit of like fight that I kind of had to get through that, but I mean, after a while, like doing like getting a TENS unit on it before the game and then icing it every night and stuff like that, and doing what I need to do to take care of the rehab process of it, I would say. I mean, after a while, it kind of died down. So, but yeah, that wasn't fun at all. So
Yeah, I know Bryce Harper got hit in the hand and wrist area, and he was out for a couple of months. So
yeah, a couple guys in our org got hit in the hand last year. I know Kreidler was out for a while, got hit in the hand. I mean, like the biggest thing I'd take away from that is like a lot of people talk about like the Evo shields, like you can wear too much of them, but like they're like, oh, you're wearing too many Evo shields and stuff like that. Well, you say that until you get hit in the hand with 97, and then you wish you had one on. So you know what I'm saying? So it's like now I'm gonna be like the guy with one on my hand, one on my wrist, one on my ankle, like because you never know. Like it could literally be any pitch at any time is like what could shorten your season a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah.
Especially when you're turning your hand with the wrist like that, and if you take away that snap because your wrist is banged up, it's gonna make for a bad day. So as far as I was looking, how's your off season looking like in terms of when pitchers and catchers report here? Wow, in 14 days, shit, that's pretty awesome.
It's right around the corner.
Yeah.
Well,
how's your off season preparation? Are you doing anything differently than you did previously?
Well, I'm in Lakeland now. I've been in Lakeland for about 2 weeks now. I've been lifting and doing stuff here. I have we had a catching camp 2 weeks ago, catching coordinator and all the catchers, and then there was some pitchers here as well, and it was like a pitch design camp / catching camp, and we're here for 5 days, and then basically after we did that catching camp, I just continue to stay here the rest of the way. So I'm here Monday through Friday, lifting, doing defense, doing hitting, stuff like that. And then on the weekends, I'll go home to see my family. So, because it's only an hour and a half drive away. So, yeah, I mean, as far as the preparation, I would say it's very similar, just in a different location. Last year, I was very much more based out of Orlando. Just over at UCF doing stuff there, which I was there a little bit earlier in the off season. But after the new year, I decided, I kind of got tired of driving and sitting in traffic in Orlando. So I was like, I think I'm just going to come back home and come to Lakeland and get in a more convenient situation, like being really close to the complex and stuff like that. And obviously, getting in the routine of waking up every morning at 6:30 and stuff like that, and being to the field and getting a lift in and doing my catching work and doing the hitting routine and stuff like that. So it's been a good process, and I feel like in 2 weeks I'm going to be more than ready to get it going. So.
Yeah, so I was kind of curious, like this is somewhat of an additional question, but who's like your favorite guy to catch? Like, who do you feel like when you just throw down a signal, they're not shaking it no matter what?
Yeah. I mean, I would say from two different aspects. Like, I have two different guys in mind. Favorite guy to catch in game for me has been this past year, because I caught him more or less 90% of his starts, was Dylan Smith. Him and I we're pretty close, and great personality. Him and I have a lot of good talks between us, and I feel like just the conversations that we have off the field and kind of the friendship that we've built throughout the time since we got here in 2001, like, I feel like that pitcher catcher bond in the middle of the game, like, it's a lot different when, and I this is the relationship I hope to establish with anyone I ever catch. Like, when I walk out to the mound, like, I want to know that I'm talking to someone that trusts me just as much as I trust them. Like, I want to know that I'm talking to like a friend. I want to know that, like, it's not just a teammate that I talk to once a week. Like, that's why it's important for me to like try and build and this is something I'm going to be a lot better at and continue to get better at last year. Like, I believe it's really important building a relationship with the pitching staff. Like, every person on that staff matters, and I feel like just as catchers in general, the addition of having a good relationship with the pitching staff only helps to better in-game performance, because when something goes sideways in the middle of the game, and we all know that it will at some point, I can walk out to the mound and he knows that the person that's talking with him not only is prepared, but he also trusts, because we hang out with each other during the week. And that's just, I feel, something that Dylan and I have shared. And, he's had some good success thus far, and looking for big things for him in the future. But I mean, I would say Dylan, as far as like a pitchability kind of guy, like, can put it pretty much wherever he wants, has 4 pitches, adding a sinker this year. Like, he's really fun to catch and fun to work with, and excited for him. But as far as just like favorite guy to catch, just because of how fascinating it is to watch, it's Elvis Alvarado. Like, just to casually throw 102-mile-an-hour sinkers, it's just unbelievable. Like, it's just a guaranteed broken bats every inning. So it's been fun to see him progress, catching him a little bit. And obviously him and I both started in Lakeland last year, and then we both ended in Erie last year. So it was a pretty cool transition to see him and how he matured as a pitcher, and as far as like how he's attacking, and basically it's just 102 right by you every time. So
yeah,
but
especially with nasty movement too, man. It's
ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in the strike throwing, that suddenly, he's just like, I'll just throw a bunch of strikes now. It's like, hey,
yeah, exactly.
Well,
you can't hit it anyway, so here it is.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of along those lines, you got to catch a lot of prospects that Tigers fans have probably heard of, from Jackson Jobe to Wilmer Flores, Ty Madden, all those guys. But I'm curious if there are some other guys. There's some nasty arms in the system that I think a lot of people haven't really heard of, like Marco Jimenez or Ted Stuka or something like that. Is there anybody who like just some really wild stuff that you don't think people really understand?
For me, like Ted Stuka, like, let's just talk about him for a minute. Like, 94 to 96 from a sub angle, like, catching him is fascinating to me. Like, I know when he comes in the game, like, I have to be locked in, because just at any point that sinker is just gonna bite like 20 inches, and I have to be ready to go to get it. And he's definitely, like, the more you catch him and you get to know him and what he's trying to do, it becomes a little bit easier to catch. But I remember the first time I ever caught him in Lakeland, that was like, I had never seen anything like that in my life. And I'm like, welcome to pro ball. Like, you see something different every day.
Well, yeah, because he's also like 6'8", right? But he's 6'8", and then like dropping down, and it's like, what?
He's extension when he pitches too. Yeah, especially I saw him pitch in Lakeland. Yeah.
He is he would not be a fun at bat for me. He would be, I would probably not swing the bat because if I did, it would probably break. So
yeah, and then the last thing for me is, and you touched on it, where the Whitecaps were in the postseason hunt most of the season, at least down the final stretch. I think it came down to the day before the end of the season, and then I think you guys won, but the Lake County won as well, so it didn't matter. And then there's a rain out, but then you're up in Erie.
Exactly.
And you were part of a really big series against Richmond, and as I recall, you hit a pretty substantial or impactful home run in that series. But you're jumping into Double A. It's advancement there. Did Gabe Alvarez did he come to you and go listen, we love you, we believe in you, but we don't have time for you to figure out Double A?
No, I mean, the mentality that I took when I went up there is obviously I was super blessed to be in that position. I wasn't expecting to get that call. I was really just trying to be where my feet were in West Michigan and let's get them to the playoffs. And then obviously when that was unable to happen because Lake County won, Pena said that they were calling me up there, and going there, I obviously knew that the staff that we were facing that next week in Richmond was from what not only the coaching staff had said, a lot of the players had said, between Kyle Harrison and some of the other guys that they had there, they're some of the best pitchers in Double A. So I knew the experience that I was going to have there was going to be beneficial for me either way, because to be honest with you, I would rather go and see go up to Double A, no matter the playing time that I got, just to have the experience of not only the playoffs, one, but two, just to see what the best pitching in Double A looks like for me. I would much rather go up and see that kind of pitching than see a lower tiered team, you know what I'm saying? And see something similar to what I've seen in high A versus real high quality big league stuff, which is what you see in Harrison and some of the other guys that they had. So I take it as a real positive in both directions, as being in a high intensity game situation, a lot riding on the games and stuff like that, but also from a developmental standpoint, I kind of got it shoved against me. I'm not gonna lie, a little bit. I had some success, hit some balls hard, obviously hit that home run, but I knew from facing that team, there were some adjustments that I needed to go into the offseason to make, because obviously in Double A, it's the next level, and it's a very, guys at that level know how to exploit your weaknesses, and I feel like that's what exactly was happening to me a little bit. I was not getting called up that next week. I was not staying sound to my approach that I had in high A, and I was kind of expanding my zone a little bit, and they were taking advantage of that, obviously. But like I said, the preparation that I had all year, and then the learning experience to end the season in Double A took me into this off season and knowing exactly what I needed to work on and how I'm going to get better at it and what I've trained all off season on. So obviously going into this next spring training, I'm going to feel a lot more prepared because I have experienced that situation. And I'm thankful for that. So.
Yeah, was that the series where Naporti angered half of Richmond?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's also another thing. He was at the I saw him a couple weeks ago, and he that was also another one of those situations, you see something new in baseball every day, and I had never seen that in my life. Guy hits a bomb, just absolutely stares it down, and then sprints full speed around the bases.
That's awesome.
Everyone was just it was the most surreal experience for me, because it's everyone is in awe that the fact that he just hit that ball 450 feet, but then the next second you looked up around the bases to see him just sprinting as fast as he can. So it's 1 minute you're looking at the ball, and the next minute you're dying laughing because you just cannot believe what happened. So, but
it's gonna be funny too, because you have Diego Racones, who's on Richmond now, part of the Tigers now. So it's gonna be a interesting conversation with you guys running into each other.
Yeah, no doubt.
Josh, thank you again for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you out. Hopefully at the start of the season in Erie, and again, your progression through the minors was impressive and something that last year when we saw you play at Lansing, and Lansing's that strange band, like it's a bandbox. I don't know what it is about Lansing. Every time we go over there's just a ton of offense. And again, it was really fun to watch you progress through the system, and look forward to seeing you out there in the field.
Hey, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, let me see here. Okay.